The way I define healing-centered mentoring is for the mentor or the agency leader to first heal thyself so that they can show up and be impactful for the mentees in their organizations.
I think about, as mentors, making sure that we are well, that we have done the healing, the internal social emotional development work to be able to interact with youth so that we can then curate that same type of healing and facilitate that for them.
Healing-centered mentoring is considering the position of the mentor, some of the trauma that they may experience, and finding new ways to approach mentoring that removes barriers for youth.
What I recognize is that sometimes the healers need to be healed and figure out ways in which they can pour into their own cups, because I think that we have to gird ourselves up spiritually, psychologically, and physically to continue to deal with the challenges of life.
Sometimes we just put our personal needs to the side and say we're just going to address it, but I've seen where that just does more harm than good. We're showing up, we're our worst selves, they don't feel connected, and we lose the rapport that we work so hard to build in those relationships.
If we are coming from this place of hurt and trauma, we don't see ourselves in certain spaces that we should be a part of. And so for youth especially, how do we let them know that you deserve to be here?
Healing for BIPOC youth is essential. The youth that I provide services to are historically marginalized, acutely underserved, and cast aside. If you approach this demographic of youth from a healing-centered perspective, it helps you to understand the core root of the poverty that they endure.
It's important to focus on those communities because historically they've been pushed to the margins and may not have access to what it is they need to move forward and be successful. It lifted up the veil on what we already knew was a mounting mental health crisis, and the communities that were impacted the most were communities of color.
A lot of times our community stigmatizes mental health instead of working through some of their own personal mental health challenges. They sit and suffer unnecessarily, and it helps us to be open and vulnerable and aware of our mental health needs and things that come up around trauma.
This is a fellowship that represents an extension of my lifelong journey in mentoring. I experienced a lot of trauma growing up and did a lot of work in the mentoring space to essentially try to heal from that trauma. I think one of the key things that we worked to do at the very beginning was to create a ecosystem where people could be vulnerable and be their full authentic selves.
It was so profound and it was so impactful in the ways that we were then allowed to be vulnerable with one another.
We all came on a level playing field, eager to learn and eager to participate in the community that Atreus made for us.
This fellowship has given me an opportunity to intentionally think about how I reimagine mentorship, thinking about the mentoring that I wanted but didn't realize I needed growing up.
My biggest takeaway from the fellowship was, in order for me to be a good mentor, I have to make sure that I am fully functional. I can share a feeling of wholeness with someone else that may be broken. If I'm broken, then I can't help them.
The community that we developed from each individual who came from different walks of life, doing this fellowship as a cohort really amplified the experience.
If you want to go fast, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go together. And so working in a cohort model, I think, allows people to grow versus trying to go at things by themselves.
I think the time is right for healing-centered mentoring because there's a lot of pain going around in the world. There's a lot of pain with youth.
My hope is we can continue to take these concepts that might be academic or clinical and put them in the hands of people that are closest to young people so that they have the tools they need to help those young people thrive.
Healing-centered mentoring is a collection of a lot of conversations and needs that will break generational chains of trauma over our people.
There is no question that healing is necessary. Our well-being is necessary to do good work, to change our conditions. As we are enough.